Hello guys, welcome to Percy Fiction. So in this video, we will see, what if Percy read the Naruto was trained by Zeno God for chunin exam. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Scroll of Kings. The monster had 6 arms and smelled like a dumpster fire in July. Percy Jackson sprinted through Times Square, riptide gleaming in his hand as tourists screamed and scattered. The thing, song, kind of chimera variant that definitely wasn't in Chiron's monster manual, crashed through a hot dog cart, sending Nathan's famous dogs flying like meaty projectiles. You know, Percy shouted, vaulting over a taxi hood. Most monsters have the decency to attack me in secluded areas. The chimera roared, spewing green flames that melted a street sign. Percy pulled moisture from a nearby water fountain, forming a shield that hissed as fire met liquid. Steam exploded outward, giving him 3 seconds of cover. He used 2 of them to close distance and 1 to drive riptide through the monster's chest. It dissolved into golden dust with a shriek that shattered every window on the block. Percy stood there breathing hard, already dreading the mist cleanup this would require, when he noticed the shimmer. Behind where the monster had been, the air rippled like heat waves over asphalt. But this wasn't heat. This was wrong in a way that made his demigod instincts scream. A portal, circular, edges crackling with energy that definitely wasn't Greek, Roman, or even Norse. The colors were off, too bright, too sharp, like reality had been photoshopped. Oh, come on, Percy muttered. I literally just finished a quest. The portal pulsed. Through it, he glimpsed trees. Not Central Park trees. These were massive, ancient, their trunks wider than his cabin at Camp Half-Blood. Something moved in those trees. Fast, heading toward the portal from the other side. Percy's options. Let whatever it was cross into Manhattan, or follow it back and close the portal from the other side. He'd seen enough movies to know option 1 ended with more destroyed hot dog carts. Annabeth is going to kill me, he said, and jumped through. The transition felt like being shoved through a straw. His atoms stretched, compressed, stretched again, colors inverted. Gravity suggested politely that it might take a coffee break. Then Percy hit solid ground and rolled, coming up with riptide ready. Forest. Definitely forest. But the trees weren't just big, they were wrong. The bark had a purple tint. The leaves rustled without wind. And the air itself felt thick, like breathing through soup. More importantly, the thing he'd been chasing was gone. The portal behind him had sealed shut. Great, Percy said to nobody. Fantastic. This is fine. He tried to sense water. There, a stream maybe 200 yards east. He started walking, keeping riptide uncapped. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the occasional rustle that stopped whenever he turned toward it. He'd gone maybe 50 feet when someone landed in front of him. 3 someones, actually. They appeared from the trees like they'd been made of shadows, moving with a synchronization that spoke of serious training. All 3 wore similar outfits, some kind of tactical vest over dark clothing, metal plates protecting vital areas. The headbands they wore had a leaf symbol etched into metal. They also had weapons drawn. Kunai knives, Percy thought. Though these looked nastier than the throwing knives he'd seen before. The one in front, a girl maybe 18 with purple hair tied back, raised her hand. Identify yourself. Percy considered his options. These people moved like trained fighters, and he was definitely trespassing. Also, he had no idea where he was or how to get home. Percy Jackson, he said, lowering riptide slightly but not sheathing it. I was chasing a monster through Manhattan and fell through a portal. I'm not here to cause trouble. Purple hair's eyes narrowed. Manhattan. Is that a village in the land of iron? It's a city. In America. On Earth. Percy watched their expressions. Confusion, but not disbelief. That was weird. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm kind of lost. If you could point me toward the nearest way home, I'll get out of your hair. He's carrying chakra-forged steel, said one of the others, a lean guy with a scar across his nose. But his signature is all wrong. It's like water, but not water release. Because I control water, Percy said. I'm a son of Poseidon. Greek god, seas and oceans, talks to horses. Any of this ringing bells? The third one, a stocky kid who couldn't be older than 16, laughed nervously. He's definitely not from around here. Purple Hair made a hand gesture Percy didn't recognize. The other two spread out, flanking him. Not aggressive, but tactical. These people knew how to fight. We're taking you to our sensei, she said. You'll surrender your weapon and come quietly. Yeah, that's not happening. Percy raised Riptide. I'm happy to talk to whoever's in charge, but I'm keeping my sword. Non-negotiable. He saw the attack coming because he'd been in enough fights to recognize the micro-movements. Purple Hair's weight shifted forward. Scar Nose's hand dipped toward his pouch. Stocky Kid's fingers formed weird shapes. Percy called the water from the stream. It came like a tidal wave condensed into a spear, blasting between them and forcing all three to scatter. He didn't try to hurt them, just created space. But the way they moved when dodging told him everything he needed to know. These weren't normal humans. They were way too fast. Scar Nose came in low, kunai flashing. Percy parried with Riptide, celestial bronze meeting steel with a screech. The guy's eyes widened at the sound. And Percy used his surprise to sweep his legs. Stocky Kid exhaled, and Percy's water spear froze solid in midair. Okay, Percy said, that's new. Purple Hair attacked from behind. Perk. Y sensed her through the moisture in the air, a trick he'd picked up from fighting underwater, and spun, Riptide cutting through her kunai like it was made of paper. The blade shattered. Purple Hair stared at the broken hilt in her hand. Celestial bronze, Percy said apologetically. It cuts through most mortal metals. That's when someone else arrived, moving so fast Percy almost didn't track it. 1 second he was facing 3 opponents, the next a man stood between them, one hand raised in a gesture that made everyone freeze. That's enough, the man said quietly. He was maybe 30, th gravity-defying silver hair and a mask covering half his face. One eye was closed in what might have been a permanent expression of boredom. The other eye studied Percy with an intensity that made his skin crawl. This guy was dangerous. Not monster dangerous. Something else entirely. Sensei. Purple Hair said, this intruder has interesting taste in swords, the silver-haired man interrupted. He looked at Riptide. That's not chakra forged. I'm not even sure it's from this dimension. Because it's not, Percy said. Neither am I. Like I told your team, I fell through a portal chasing a monster. I just want to go home. Silver Hair tilted his head. Your chakra signature is bizarre. It reads like an elemental affinity pushed to its absolute limit, but the control is all wrong. Self-taught. I don't know what chakra is, Percy admitted. I use powers inherited from my dad. He's the god of the sea. A god. Silver Hair didn't sound skeptical, just thoughtful. We've had dimensional breaches before. But never from a reality with active deities. This complicates things. For me too, Percy said. Look, I don't want trouble. Just point me at whoever might know about portals and I'll figure out the rest. Silver Hair was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, which somehow made him look more dangerous. I'm Kakashi Hatake, Jonin of Konohagakure. You've entered the land of fire during preparations for the chunin selection exams. And you, he pointed at Percy, just became a very interesting problem. Story of my life, Percy muttered. Here's what's going to happen, Kakashi continued. We can't let an unknown entity with your level of power wander freely, especially not during the exams. But imprisoning you seems politically complicated. So I'm going to make you a deal. Percy didn't like the sound of that. What kind of deal? Enter the chunin exams as a foreign competitor. It gives us a way to monitor you, gives you a chance to prove you're not a threat. And if you perform well, we might be able to arrange a meeting with someone who actually knows about dimensional travel. What if I say no? Kakashi's visible eye curved into a smile that didn't reach it. Then we'll have to assume you're a security risk. You seem like a good kid, but we've had invasions before. I'd rather not add fighting a potential demigod to my paperwork today. Percy weighed his options. He was outnumbered in an unknown location with no clear way home. These people seemed organized, which meant they probably had resources. And this Kakashi guy was right. If Percy ran, they'd chase him. Better to play along until he learned more. Fine, he said. But when I pass your exams, you help me get home. Deal, deal. Kakashi pulled out a scroll. Though I should mention, the chunin exams have a 20% mortality rate. Still interested, Percy thought about the labyrinth, Tartarus, and the war with Gia. I've had worse odds. I like him, stocky kid whispered. Konohagakure was unlike any place Percy had ever seen. The village sprawled across a valley surrounded by forests and mountains, buildings ranging from traditional wooden structures to modern-looking towers. People moved through streets wearing everything from ancient-looking robes to tactical gear. And everyone moved with that same trained fluidity as Kakashi's team. This was a warrior society. Kakashi led him through streets while the three-person team followed at a discreet distance. People stared. Percy was used to that, but this felt different. Weren't the looks mortals gave when the mist showed them something wrong. These people knew he was an outsider. The exams draw competitors from all over, Kakashi explained, hands in his pockets like this was a casual stroll. Usually from villages within our alliance network. A dimensional traveler is new, but I've sold it to the Hokage as a unique opportunity for intelligence gathering. You already talked to your boss. When? Kakashi tapped his ear. Radio. Very useful technology. They reached a large circular building with a domed roof. Kakashi paused at the entrance. Quick rundown, he said. Chunin exams test combat ability, intelligence, and decision-making under pressure. 3 phases. First is written examination tomorrow morning. You'll be assigned to a team of 2 others, we'll pick carefully. Succeed in all 3 phases, and you'll have proven you're both capable and trustworthy. At that point, meeting with our Dimensional Research Division becomes much easier. And if I fail, then you probably won't survive to worry about getting home. Kakashi said it cheerfully. The exams are designed to identify those ready for actual combat missions. People die. That's not a threat, just reality. Percy had been fighting monsters since he was 12. He'd gone to war against titans and giants. But something about Kakashi's casual acceptance of mortality made the danger feel more real, not less. Understood, Percy said. Good. Now, you'll be staying in the competitor barracks tonight. Rules are simple. No fighting outside official exam settings, no leaving the village. No interfering with other competitors. Break those rules and you're disqualified. Or arrested. Depends on what you do. Kakashi handed Percy a small badge with a number on it. Registration ID. Don't lose it. Someone will collect you at dawn for the first exam. Wait, that's it. No orientation. No explanation of what chakra is, no. You'll figure it out, Kakashi interrupted. You seem resourceful. Besides, watching you adapt will be entertaining. He smiled. Oh, and Percy, welcome to the Hidden Leaf Village. Try not to destroy anything. Then he was gone, vanishing in a swirl of leaves that appeared from nowhere and dissolved just as fast. The 3-person team remained. Purple Hair stepped forward, looking less hostile now. I'm Suzume, she said. Sorry about the rough welcome. Patrol duty makes you paranoid. It's fine. I'd do the same in your position. Percy offered his hand. She shook it after a moment's hesitation. So, any tips for someone who has no idea what he's gotten into? Scar Nose laughed. Don't die. Super helpful, thanks. Seriously though, Stocky Kid said, the first exam is usually psychological. They're testing if you can handle pressure. The second is survival. The third, he shrugged. If you make it that far, you'll know. Suzume pointed at the barracks. You'll meet the other competitors inside. Some are friendly, most aren't. The exams bring out the worst in people. She paused. That water technique you used, how did you do that without hand signs? It's not a technique, Percy said. It's just something I can do. Like breathing. The 3 exchanged glances. Suzume nodded slowly. Then you might actually survive this. Good luck, Percy Jackson. They left him standing outside the barracks, badge in hand. In a world he didn't understand, about to compete in an exam that might kill him. Just another Tuesday, Percy muttered, and pushed open the door. The inside of the barracks was chaos. Dozens of competitors filled the space, some meditating, others sparring in marked circles, a few clustered in groups talking strategy. The noise level reminded Percy of the dining pavilion at Camp Half-Blood during the summer. Heads turned when he entered. Conversations paused. Percy felt the weight of scrutiny like a physical thing. He spotted an empty bunk in the corner and headed for it, ignoring the stares. Someone stuck out a foot to trip him. Percy stepped over it without breaking stride, and behind him heard a disappointed grunt. The bunk was basic. Mattress, footlocker, small shelf. Percy rocked onto the bed and immediately felt how terrible it was. He'd slept on rocks more comfortable than this. First time in the exams, said a voice. Percy looked up. A kid maybe his age leaned against the bunk post, arms crossed. He had dark hair pulled into a short ponytail, sharp features, and eyes that assessed Percy like he was calculating weak points. That obvious? Percy asked. UW. Octin like you owned the place but headed straight for the worst bunk in the room. Confident but uninformed. The kid smirked. I'm Ren Takeuchi, Earth-style specialist, Konoha native, third attempt at the exams. Third attempt. Is that common? More common than passing on the first try. Ren sat on the opposite bunk without asking. So what's your story? You're not from any village I recognize. That weapon definitely isn't standard issue. And your chakra? He frowned. Actually, I can't read your chakra at all. Are you suppressing it? I don't have chakra, Percy said. Or if I do, I don't know what it is. Ren stared at him. You're joking. Nope. You can't fight without chakra. That's like trying to swim without water. Percy grinned. Funny you should mention swimming. Before Ren could respond, someone else approached. A girl, maybe 17, with censor type written all over her. She had pale eyes that seemed to look through Percy rather than at him, and her movements were precise, economical. He's telling the truth, Ren, she said. No chakra signature at all. But something else. Like standing next to the ocean. Hana Shimizu, Ren introduced. Best censor in our graduating class. If she says you feel like the ocean, trust it. Percy Jackson, Percy said. And you're both from Konoha. Unfortunately for you, yes. Ren's smirk widened. Kakashi. Sensei told us we'd be on a team with someone unusual. Guess that's you. We're teammates. Percy sat up. When did that get decided? About 3 minutes ago, Hana said. Kakashi-sensei has a radio. He told us to look for the guy with the weird sword who feels like salt water. Here you are. Percy processed that. Kakashi had moved fast, which meant either this was a setup, or the Jonin genuinely wanted Percy to have competent teammates. So what do you know about me? Percy asked. Not much, Ren admitted. Just that you're from another dimension, you control water without chakra. And Kakashi thinks you're worth watching. That's either very good or very bad. Probably bad, Hana said. The exams have enough challenges without adding dimensional anomalies. Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence. I call things as I sense them. Hana tilted her head. But you survived an encounter with Kakashi-sensei and he didn't immediately neutralize you. That means you're either skilled or lucky. Hopefully skilled. Percy was starting to like these two despite himself. Ren reminded him of Leo. Sharp, sarcastic, clearly compensating for something with bravado. Hana was more like Annabeth. Analytical, direct. No patience for nonsense. So what's the play for tomorrow? Percy asked. Survive the written exam, Ren said. It's designed to test information gathering and decision-making under pressure. Cheating is expected. Getting caught is failure. Wait, cheating is expected. It's a ninja village, Hana said. Deception is part of the job. The real test is having the skill to cheat without detection. Percy thought about every test he'd ever bombed at mortal schools. I'm so screwed. Maybe, Ren agreed. But you've got us. Hana can sense Proctor locations. I can create listening devices from compressed earth. Between the three of us, we might actually pass. Assuming we can trust each other, Hana added, looking at Percy. Can we? I'm not here to sabotage anyone, Percy said. I just want to survive this and get home. If that means working together, I'm in. Ren and Hana exchanged a glance. Some silent communication passed between them. Good enough, Ren said finally. Welcome to Team Misfit. Try not to die before the fun parts. Percy couldn't sleep. The barracks quieted around midnight, but his mind kept racing. Everything about this place felt off, not wrong. Just fundamentally different from the world he knew. The energy in the air, the way people moved, even the way light hit surfaces seemed slightly skewed from normal reality. He lay on the terrible bunk and tried to make sense of his situation. Dimensional travel wasn't new to him. He'd been to Tartarus, after all, but this felt different. There was no divine influence here, no Olympian fingerprints. This place operated on its own rules. And he had no idea how to get home. The thought of Annabeth worrying about him made his chest tight. She'd probably already contacted Chiron. Maybe even reached out to the hunters to help search. But they'd be looking in all the wrong places because nobody would think to check other dimensions. Percy sat up. He needed air. The barracks had a small courtyard out back. Percy slipped outside, Riptide pen form in his pocket, and found a bench under a tree that looked almost normal. The village at night was beautiful in an eerie way. Lights glowed in windows. Somewhere in the distance, he heard laughter. A patrol moved across a rooftop, barely visible against the stars. This was someone's home. These people lived here, trained here, died protecting this place. It wasn't so different from Camp Half-Blood when he thought about it. "Can't sleep," said a voice. Percy spun, hand going to Riptide. A figure leaned against the courtyard wall, half hidden in shadow. As his eyes adjusted, he made out details: white hair, red eyes that seemed to glow slightly, and a smile that was all edges. "Relax," the figure said, stepping into moonlight. "I'm a competitor, same as you." The guy was maybe 20, with an athletic build and scars visible on his bare forearms. He wore the same tactical gear as other competitors, but his headband bore a symbol Percy didn't recognize, a single raindrop. "Percy Jackson," Percy said, not quite relaxing. "I know. Word travels fast." The stranger's smile widened. "They're calling you the dimensional anomaly. Very dramatic. I'm Katsuro Yami, Hidden Rain Village." Something about Katsuro set off warning bells. Maybe it was the way he stood too still, or how his eyes tracked Percy without blinking. Or maybe it was the energy rolling off him, cold and vast, like standing at the edge of an abyss. "You're scouting competitors," Percy said. "Smart. Yes, I like to know who I'll be facing. And you're the most interesting one here." Katsuro pushed off the wall, closing distance with casual confidence. "Water manipulation without chakra. Dimensional origins. A weapon that cuts through steel like paper. Tell me, Percy Jackson, what god gave you that training?" Percy's hand tightened on Riptide. "What makes you think a god was involved?" "Because I recognize the signs." Katsuro held up his left arm. A tattoo marked his inner wrist, complex symbols that seemed to writhe in the moonlight. "I was also trained by something divine. Or something that used to be divine. It's complicated. Most things with gods are." "True." Katsuro's expression shifted, becoming almost curious. "What's it like, having power but knowing it's borrowed? Do you ever wonder what you'd be without it?" The question hit harder than Percy expected. He thought about all the times he'd questioned whether he was actually good at this or just lucky to have inherited the right genetics. "Every day," Percy admitted. "But I try not to let it matter. Power is power. What you do with it is what counts." Philosophical. Katsuro's smile returned, colder this time. "I disagree. The source of power defines its nature. Divine gifts come with strings. They can be taken away. True strength is what you claim for yourself." "Sounds like you've got some issues with gods. Don't you?" Katsuro tilted his head. "I've heard stories about pantheons. They use mortals like game pieces. Give just enough power to create champions, then watch them struggle for entertainment. Is that really so different from livestock?" Percy thought about Zeus, about Ares, about every petty divine squabble he'd been dragged into. Katsuro wasn't entirely wrong, but he also wasn't right. "Gods are complicated," Percy said. "Some are terrible, some try, but power without wisdom is just destruction. I've seen what happens when people try to claim godhood. It never ends well." "Perhaps." Katsuro stepped back, smile never wavering. "I look forward to testing your borrowed strength, Percy Jackson. Let's see if divine training beats self-made discipline." "Is that a threat?" "A promise. But not yet. I don't waste effort on preliminaries." Katsuro turned to leave, then paused. "Word of advice. Watch for patterns. The exams have been different this year. Small changes, but significant. Someone's manipulating things from behind the scenes." "Why tell me?" Because I want you to reach the finals. Defeating you when you're unprepared would be meaningless. Katsuro vanished. Not in a burst of leaves like Kakashi, but by simply stepping into shadow and ceasing to exist. Percy stood alone in the courtyard, heart pounding. That guy was dangerous. Not just skilled dangerous. Something else entirely. The way he moved, the way he spoke, even the energy he radiated, it all screamed threat. And he'd basically declared war while offering advice. What kind of psycho logic was that? Percy headed back inside, knowing sleep was now completely impossible. Ren and Hannah were still out cold on their bunks. He sat on his own terrible mattress and tried to organize his thoughts. Tomorrow was the written exam. No combat, just intelligence testing. He could handle that, probably, maybe. He needed an edge, something to help him compete against people who'd trained their entire lives for this. Percy's hand went to his pocket, where Riptide rested in pen form. The sword was magic, forged by Olympian craftsmen. But it was still just a sword. It wouldn't help him cheat on a written test. What he needed was... Percy stopped. Across the barracks, partially hidden behind a support beam, was a doorway he hadn't noticed before. It looked old, really old, with symbols carved into the frame that made his dyslexia spike. Greek letters. In a ninja village in another dimension. That couldn't be coincidence. Percy glanced around. Everyone was asleep or close to it. Moving quietly, he crossed to the door and examined the symbols. Anoigo, he read, stumbling over the pronunciation. Open. The door swung inward silently. Beyond was a staircase leading down into darkness. Percy should have woken Ren and Hannah. Should have reported this to someone. Should have done anything except what he did next. He descended the stairs alone. The passage was narrow, walls carved from stone that predated the building above. Percy's footsteps echoed despite his efforts at stealth. The air grew colder with each step, and that familiar tingle of nearby divine presence raised the hair on his neck. At the bottom, the passage opened into a small chamber. And in the center of that chamber, sitting on a stone pedestal, was a scroll sealed with wax that gleamed like starlight. Percy approached slowly. The seal bore a symbol he'd never seen, a circle containing all existence, simple and infinite at once. Just looking at it made his eyes hurt. Divine artifact. Definitely divine artifact. Every instinct told Percy to leave it alone. Nothing good came from randomly opening sealed divine objects. But the Greek letters on the door suggested this was meant to be found. Meant specifically for someone who could read ancient Greek. Which in this dimension might only be Percy. This is such a bad idea, Percy muttered, and broke the seal. The scroll unrolled itself. Words appeared on the parchment. Not written, but forming from nothing, glowing with soft light. And the language was modern English, which was somehow more disturbing than Greek. To whoever reads this, the words said, "Congratulations on finding my little gift. I left this here about 3,000 years ago by local timekeeping. It's for whoever needs it most when they need it most. That's you. You're welcome." The handwriting was childish, letters uneven and sometimes backwards. But the power radiating from the scroll made Percy's teeth ache. "My name is Zeno," the text continued. "I'm the Omni King. That means I can erase universes when I'm bored. But right now I'm not bored because I'm watching you read this." "Hi." Waved to the scroll. Percy, feeling ridiculous, waved. The text changed. "Saw your wave. Very polite. Anyway, you're in trouble. You're about to compete in something you don't understand against people with years of training. Without help, you'll probably die. And that would be sad because you seem fun. Who are you talking to?" Percy said to the empty room. "So here's my gift," the scroll continued, ignoring his question. "Combat knowledge. Not power. You've got plenty of that. But understanding. How to read opponents. When to strike. Where weaknesses hide. I learned this stuff watching countless warriors across countless universes fight countless battles. Some were gods. Some were mortals. All had something to teach." The text began to glow brighter. "This will hurt. Sorry about that. But pain means it's working. Ready? Of course not. Nobody's ever ready. Here we go." The scroll exploded into light. Percy screamed as information crashed into his mind like a tidal wave. He saw two warriors moving at light speed, each punch creating shockwaves that shattered planets, but the fight wasn't about power, it was about timing. About reading the microscopic tells in muscle tension that predicted the next move. A swordsman facing 100 opponents, not stronger or faster but knowing exactly where to stand so enemies blocked each other. Turned friendly fire into environmental advantage. A tactician analyzing a battlefield at a glance, seeing not what was but what would be 3 moves from now, PR. Dictating chain reactions like a chess grandmaster. Knowledge flooded him. Patterns in combat that transcended specific fighting styles. The mathematics of violence. How to read breathing patterns, eye movement, weight distribution. How to find the rhythm in chaos and exploit it. Percy's mind struggled to contain it all. This wasn't just information, it was understanding carved directly into his neural pathways. And underneath it all ran a current of cold tactical thinking that felt fundamentally inhuman. When the light finally faded, Percy was on his knees, gasping. The scroll had dissolved into ash. He stood slowly. The room looked the same. He felt different. No, that wasn't quite right. He felt like himself. But now there was something else layered on top. A lens through which he saw. View combat situations and instantly map probabilities, openings, optimal responses. Percy looked at his hands. They weren't shaking. That was wrong. After something like that, they should be shaking. The cold tactical part of his mind analyzed this. Conclusion. Emotional suppression, side effect of knowledge absorption. Hypothesis. Would wear off as integration completed. Recommendation. ACC. EPT reduced emotional response temporarily to maximize survival probability. No, Percy said out loud. Absolutely not. He focused on what made him Percy Jackson. Annabeth's smile. Blue food. Swimming in the ocean. The feeling of catching riptide mid-throw. His mom's cooking. Grover's bad jokes. The cold lens cracked. Emotions flooded back. Fear, confusion, anger at whatever Zeno thought he was doing by messing with Percy's head. But the knowledge remained. Combat understanding that felt as natural as breathing. The ability to read a fight 3 moves deep. Tactical assessment running in. The background of his thoughts like a computer program. Percy climbed the stairs on shaky legs. He emerged into the barracks just as dawn light began filtering through windows. Nobody had noticed his absence. He crawled onto his bunk and lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. A god, or something calling itself an Omni-King, had left him a gift. Combat Nold, GE that might help him survive the exams. But at what cost? He'd felt that cold tactical mindset tried to suppress his emotions. If he'd accepted it, would he even be Percy anymore? And why had Zeno left this specifically for him? The scroll said it was for whoever needs it most when they need it most. But that implied observation across time, which was the kind of power that made even the Olympians look small. Percy closed his eyes. His mind immediately began analyzing the barracks, exit points, potential threats, resource distribution. He forced it to stop. I'm still me, he whispered. Just me with better tactics. That's all this is. He almost believed it. Dawn came too quickly. A horn blared through the barracks, jolting everyone awake. Ren appeared beside Percy's bunk looking entirely too cheerful for someone running on 4 hours of sleep. Time to fail spectacularly, he announced. Come on, they serve breakfast before the first exam. Might be our last meal. Percy rolled out of bed, body protesting. But his mind felt sharp. Crystal clear. He could hear conversations across the room and simultaneously track the movement patterns of competitors heading for the door. You look terrible, Hannah observed, materializing beside him. Didn't sleep. Not much, Percy admitted. Nerves. Something like that. They followed the crowd to a large mess hall. Breakfast was rice, fish, and vegetables. Percy ate mechanically while his enhanced tactical sense analyzed the room. 63 competitors. 32 wore Konoha headbands. 14 from Hidden Sand. 8 from Hidden Rain, including Katsuro, sitting alone in a corner. The remaining 9 represented smaller villages. 3 proctors monitored the hall. 1 near the entrance. 1 by the serving line. 1 circulating randomly. No, not randomly. Pattern detected. Checking specific tables. Looking for what? Rule violations. Pre-exam collusion. Percy forced himself to stop analyzing and focus on his food. You're doing it again, Hannah said quietly. Doing what? That thing where your eyes track everything. It's unsettling. Ren leaned in. She's right. You look like a sensor type who forgot how to blink. What's going on? Percy considered lying. Decided against it. I had a weird night. Found something in the basement. Something that might help with the exams. Define. Found something, Ren said. A scroll. Divine artifact. It downloaded combat knowledge into my brain. Both teammates stared at him. You're serious, Hannah said finally. Completely. That's. Ren struggled for words. That's either the luckiest thing I've ever heard or the dumbest. Divine artifacts don't just hand out power for free. I know, but I didn't have much choice. The scroll was addressed to whoever needed it most. Percy met their eyes. I'm still figuring out what it did to me. But I think I can use it to help us pass. Hannah's pale eyes studied him. Your signature changed. It's still like ocean. But now there's something else. Something that watches. That's a creepy way to put it. But accurate, she insisted. Ren drummed his fingers on the table. Okay. Divine knowledge boost aside. Here's what matters. Can you use it without losing yourself? Because I've seen people gain power they couldn't handle. It never ends well. I'm managing, Percy said. Though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. The tactical overlay kept trying to surface, offering probability calculations he hadn't asked for. Good enough. Ren stood. Come on. They're moving us to the exam hall. The competitors filed out in loose groups, tension thick enough to cut. Percy noticed how people clustered by village affiliation, how certain individuals were given wide berth. Katsuro walked alone, and even hardened fighters avoided his path. The exam hall was a converted auditorium with rows of individual desks. Each station had a number corresponding to registration badges. Percy found his middle row, 3 seats from the left. Ren was 2 rows back. Hannah somewhere to his right, but he couldn't spot her without turning around. A proctor stood at the front, a man with a bandana covering most of his face and scars visible on his hands. His presence filled the room like a physical weight. Sit, he commanded. You have 30 seconds. Competitors scrambled for seats. Percy slid in. To his as the proctor began counting down. At 0, the door slammed shut. 3 people were still standing. You're eliminated, the proctor said flatly. Leave. But I was just. 1 started. Out. Now. The 3 shuffled out, faces burning with humiliation. The remaining 60 filed the room with new awareness. The exams had already begun. I am Ibiki Morino, the proctor announced. For the next hour, you will face a written examination. 10 questions, each worth 10 points. Your team shares a combined score of 100 points. He let that sink in. Percy's tactical mind immediately mapped the implications. 3-person teams meant missing 1 question equaled failure for everyone. The pressure to cheat just skyrocketed. You begin with 10 points each, Ibiki continued. Every time you're caught cheating, you lose 2 points. Get caught 5 times, you and your entire team are eliminated. Question 10 will be revealed in 45 minutes. Papers appeared on each desk, placed by proctors who'd moved so quietly Percy hadn't tracked them. His enhanced awareness pinged danger. These proctors were way above normal human capability. You may begin, Ibiki said. Percy flipped over his exam paper and immediately understood why cheating was expected. Question 1 asked for detailed troop movement patterns of the Hidden Stones Northern Battalion, information a Konoha genin would never have. Question 2 wanted the chemical composition of a rare poison used exclusively by Hidden Sands Medical Corps. Question 3 required decoding an encrypted message using a cipher Percy had never seen. These weren't questions you answered through study. They were designed to test information gathering in hostile conditions. Cheating wasn't just expected, it was the point. Percy's new tactical awareness kicked in automatically. He analyzed the room. Proctor positions. 7 total, stationed at optimal observation points. But they couldn't watch everywhere simultaneously. Scan patterns detected. 30-second intervals before coverage gaps appeared. Competitor behaviors. Already 4 people had been caught cheating. Too obvious. They'd tried to crane their necks at neighbors' papers. Better approach. Use Hannah's sensing abilities to map proctor blind spots. Use Ren's earth manipulation to create a communication network beneath desks. Use Percy's enhanced awareness to coordinate timing. But that required communication. And they were separated. Percy tapped his pen against the desk. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. Morse code. Did they even have Morse code in this world? Behind him, Ren responded with a barely audible scrape of his chair. Earth-style users could probably feel vibrations through the floor. Percy tapped again, this time in a pattern. 3 long, 2 short, 1 long. Ren answered with a single tap. Message received. Now for Hannah. Percy reached for the moisture in the air. There was always moisture, and condensed it into tiny droplets on his desk, forming an arrow pointing right. 30 seconds later, the droplets on his desk rippled in response. Hannah had seen it and was ready. Percy glanced at question 1. He had no idea about troop movements. But somewhere in this room, someone did. His tactical awareness mapped competitors. Hidden stone shinobi sat in the back left corner. One of them would have this information. The trick was getting it without being caught. Percy noticed a girl 3 rows up using a mirror technique, reflecting off a kunai polished to shine. Clever, but the angle was wrong. She'd be caught within 2 minutes. Another competitor had actual bugs crawling across the ceiling. They landed on papers, presumably relaying information back. More sophisticated, but Percy watched a proctor track one insect with his eyes. That method was already compromised. Then Percy spotted something better. A competitor whose eyes had turned completely white. Byakugan, his new knowledge supplied. A bloodline abili, tie that granted 360-degree vision and could see through solid objects. That person could read every paper in the room. Percy waited for the next proctor scan pattern gap. When it came, he formed water droplets in the air, just 3, nearly invisible, and guided them to land on the Byakugan user's desk in sequence. The competitor's head turned slightly. Percy shaped more droplets into an arrow pointing at his own paper. The Byakugan user smiled and gave the slightest nod. Over the next 10 minutes, information flowed through the room in subtle exchanges. The Byakugan user would lean back, arms crossed in specific patterns. Percy translated those patterns to Morse code vibrations through his desk. Ren received and passed information to Hannah through earth vibrations. Hannah confirmed receipt with chakra pulses that Percy felt through water vapor. It was the most elaborate cheating network Percy had ever been part of. And it was working. He filled in answers, making Sir E to add realistic delays so it didn't look like information appeared too fast. Question 1. Troop movements. Question 2. Poison composition. Question 3. Cipher decoded. Turned out to be a substitution cipher once you knew the key. Around him, competitors were eliminated. A pair caught whispering. 1 fool who tried using a radio earpiece. 3 people whose puppet technique was spotted by a proctor with sharp eyes. The numbers dwindled. 47 remaining. 43. 38. Percy finished question 9 as Ibiki's voice rang out. Time for question 10. The room went dead silent. Before I reveal it, Ibiki continued, you have a choice. You may refuse to answer question 10. If you do, you and your team are eliminated, but you may retake the exam in 6 months. He paused, letting tension build. However, if you choose to answer question 10 and get it wrong, you are barred from ever becoming chunin. You will remain genin for life. The room exploded with whispers. Ren hissed something behind Percy. Somewhere to his right, a competitor stood up and walked out, face pale. 3 people just eliminated their teams, Ibiki noted. Anyone else? More hands rose. People left in pairs and trios. The weight of the decision pressed down like a physical thing. Percy's tactical mind analyzed options. The question hadn't even been revealed yet. This was pure psychological pressure. Testing who would crack under uncertainty. But something bothered him. Percy raised his hand. Question, he called out. Ibiki's eyes fixed on him. Speak. You said we be barred from becoming chunin for life. But the exams are supposed to test if we're ready for actual missions. In real missions, there's no option to give up and try again later. So this choice is actually the test, isn't it? The question itself doesn't matter. You're testing who has the courage to accept unknown risks. The room went completely still. Ibiki's scarred face split into a grin. Clever. You're the dimensional anomaly, correct? Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson just revealed the nature of the 10th question without me having to explain it. Ibiki looked around the room. Q. Question 10 is, will you accept the risk of failure for the chance at success? In the field, you'll face missions where retreat isn't an option. Where the cost of failure is death. Can you commit to T. Ho's missions knowing you might not come back? He let that hang. So here's my final question, who stays? Percy kept his hand down. Around him, more competitors stood and left. But the majority remained. 31 people. 31 who chose to risk everything. Good, Ibiki said. Then congratulations. Everyone still seated has passed the first exam. The room erupted. Someone shouted in protest. Others laughed in relief. Percy felt the tension drain from his shoulders. The questions were irrelevant, Ibiki explained. We were testing information gathering and decision-making under pressure. Those who gathered information successfully proved basic competency. Those who stayed for question 10 proved they have the will necessary for high-stakes missions. Ren appeared beside Percy's desk, grinning. Did you seriously just explain the test to the proctor? It seemed obvious once I thought about it. Only to you. Hannah joined them, pale eyes amused. Normal people don't dissect psychological tests mid-exam. Blame the divine knowledge boost, Percy muttered. Before anyone could respond, the wall behind Ibiki exploded. Not metaphorically, literally exploded. Chunks of concrete and wood flew inward as a figure crashed through, landing in a crouch. It was a woman, maybe 25, with purple hair tied in a spiky ponytail and wearing a tan coat over mesh armor. She held a kunai in each hand and radiated the kind of energy that said, danger, in 6 languages. Ibiki, she shouted. I'm here to proctor the second exam. Are these losers ready or what? Anko. Ibiki said calmly, there's a door. Doors are for people without flair. Anko straightened, scanning the remaining competitors. Her eyes locked on Percy. Ooh, you're the interdimensional kid. Excellent. I love wild cards. And I love walls that stay intact, Ibiki said. But since you're here, second exam starts in 1 hour. Anko announced. Meet at training ground 44. Don't be late or you forfeit. Also, sign these death waivers because the forest of death is exactly as fun as it sounds. She threw a stack of papers into the air. They scattered across the room. Forest of death, Percy asked. Our survival training area, Ren explained, looking slightly green. It's full of giant animals, poisonous plants, and generally everything that wants to kill you. My favorite place in the whole village. Anko added cheerfully. See you kids soon. Try not to die before the fun part. She vanished through the hole she'd made, leaving destruction and confused competitors in her wake. Hannah picked up one of the waivers. This literally says the village accepts no responsibility for deaths, maimings, or psychological trauma. They want us to sign this. At least they're honest, Percy offered. That's not comforting. Training Ground 44 lived up to its nickname. The fence surrounding it had to be 40 feet tall, topped with barbed wire and warning signs in multiple languages. Through the gaps, Percy glimpsed massive trees, dense undergrowth, and something that might have been a dinosaur. The 31 remaining competitors gathered in front of the entrance. Anko stood on a platform. That manic grin still plastered on her face. Welcome to the second exam, she announced. This is where we separate the wheat from the chaff. Behind me is 120 square miles of hell disguised as forest. It contains everything from giant tigers to carnivorous plants to terrain that actively tries to murder you. She pulled out 2 scrolls, one marked with the kanji for heaven. Another marked earth. Your objective. Survive 5 days in the forest and reach the tower at its center with both scrolls. You'll start with one, either heaven or earth. To get the other, you'll need to take it from another team. By force. Percy's tactical mind mapped implications immediately. 31 people meant 10 complete teams plus 1 partial. Minimum. 5 teams needed to pass if each team fought only once for their second scroll. But accounting for complications, losses, and team eliminations, probably only 3 to 5 teams would make it. Rules are simple, Anko continued. Don't open the scrolls until you reach the tower. Don't kill unless absolutely necessary, though we can't stop you. Don't leave the forest boundaries. Break these rules and you're disqualified. Any questions? A brave soul raised his hand. What if we run out of food? Hunt, fish, starve. I don't care. Anko's grin widened. This is survival training. Figure it out. What about medical emergencies? Quote, we have medics stationed throughout the forest. If you're dying and can trigger a flare, someone might save you. Emphasis on might. No more questions. Smart. Anko divided teams randomly, assigning each to a different entrance point. Percy's team, officially designated Team 7 for some reason, received an Earth scroll and was directed to Gate 12. As they walked, Percy noticed Katsuro's team heading to a different gate. The white-haired shinobi caught his eye and smiled that cold smile. A promise of inevitable confrontation. Gate 12 was on the east side. A proctor waited there, a bored-looking chunin with clipboard. Team 7, Percy Jackson, Ren Takeuchi, Hana Shimizu. Earth scroll confirmed. He opened the gate. 5 days. Good luck. You'll need it. The forest swallowed them instantly. One moment they were in cleared ground, the next surrounded by trees so tall Percy couldn't see their tops. The undergrowth was thick, humid, and alive with sounds he couldn't identify. Okay, Ren said quietly. First priority, find defensible position and assess resources. Second, identify other teams. Third, acquire Heaven Scroll. Agreement, Hana said. I can sense chakra signatures within 100 meters. I'll detect ambushes before they hit us. They both looked at Percy. I can track water sources and predict optimal ambush locations based on terrain. Percy said, his tactical awareness overlaying the forest with probability maps. Also, I can fight. That seems relevant. Can you fight? Ren challenged. We saw you deflect some kunai yesterday. But that's different from actual combat. Fair point. Percy hadn't really demonstrated his abilities yet. Give me a target, Percy said. Ren pointed at a tree 30 feet away. Hit that. Percy reached out with his water sense. There, a stream 200 yards north. He pulled moisture from the air, condensing it into a spear of pressurized water, and launched it. The tree exploded. The water spear punched through the trunk like it was made of tissue paper, kept going, and detonated against another tree behind it. Both teammates stared. That, Hana said carefully, was not chakra-based. Nope. Pure water manipulation. Percy gestured at the destruction. I can do that with any water source. Oceans are ideal, but even humidity works. Ren struggled for words. That's a strategic level technique. People train for years to achieve that kind of output. It's what I'm good at. Percy felt slightly embarrassed by their reactions. Is it too much? Too much. That's perfect. Ren's grin returned. Okay. New plan. Percy is our heavy hitter. Hana scouts and provides intelligence. I run support and create terrain advantages. Standard formation is Hana on point sensing. Percy in middle for rapid response, me in rear covering escape routes. Agreed, Hana said, but we need to conserve energy. 5 days is a long time. We can't go full power every fight. Then we avoid fights when possible, Percy suggested. Use ambush tactics, take out teams quickly before they can call for help. Both nodded. They moved deeper into the forest. And Percy felt the team starting to gel. These two were competent, professional, and most importantly, they adapted fast. They'd seen something outside their experience and immediately incorporated it into strategy. An hour in, Hana raised her fist. Everyone froze. Chakra signatures ahead, she whispered. 3 people, standard combat formation, moving parallel to us. Team hunting, Ren assessed. They're looking for prey. Quote, then let's give them what they're looking for, Percy said. His tactical awareness had already mapped the perfect ambush point, a clearing with a stream running through it. Hana, can you lead them to these coordinates? He sketched a quick map in the dirt. Hana studied it and nodded. I can make noise to draw them. But what's your plan? Percy smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Ren, how fast can you create a pit trap? With Earth release. 30 seconds if I'm sloppy, 2 minutes for something clean. Make it sloppy. Hana, draw them to the clearing in 3 minutes. I'll handle the rest. They split up. Percy reached the clearing and immediately assessed water resources. The stream was perfect, fast-moving, deep enough for his purposes. He waded in and waited. 2 minutes later, he heard voices. 3 competitors emerged from the undergrowth, following Hana's carefully placed trail. They were young, maybe 15, wearing hidden rain headbands. The one in front had a sword. The other two carried kunai. They spotted the stream and slowed, suspicious. Too late. Percy raised his hands. Water erupted from the stream in tentacles, 4 of them, moving with coordination that looked choreographed. 2 grabbed the sword user's arms. A third wrapped around his waist. The fourth disarmed him before he could react. The other 2 tried to run. Ren's earth release activated, and the ground beneath them became a pit. They dropped 15 feet onto soft mud, not injured, but trapped. Sword user struggled against Percy's water grip. Percy applied more pressure. Not enough to hurt but enough to convey the message. Your scroll, Percy said. Hand it over and we let you go. Like hell. The kid started. Percy lifted him 10 feet in the air using the water tentacles. I can do this all day. You can't. Scroll. Now. The kid's teammates in the pit exchanged looks. One of them pulled out a scroll. Heaven. Throw it up, Percy commanded. The scroll arced through the air. Hannah caught it. Smart choice, Percy said, lowering the sword user gently. You can climb out of the pit using that tree root. We'll be gone in 30 seconds. Advice. Find a different strategy. You're not ready for this exam. He released his water constructs and joined his team. They vanished into the forest, leaving 3 confused but alive competitors behind. That was efficient, Ren said once they were clear. And surprisingly merciful. No point killing them, Percy replied. We got what we needed. Most teams wouldn't be that generous, Hannah observed. They'd eliminate competition permanently. I'm not most teams. They moved on, putting distance between themselves and the ambush site. Percy felt the tactical knowledge running calculations, tracking their path, mapping safe routes, identifying potential threats. But beneath that cold analytical layer, he was relieved. The ambush had worked without anyone getting seriously hurt. That was important. That was still him. We have both scrolls, Ren said. Current objective. Reach the tower and survive until day 5. Or, Hannah pointed through the trees. In the distance, barely visible, a tower rose above the canopy. We head straight there and defend a position rather than wandering. Bold strategy, Ren admitted. But it makes us sitting ducks. Counterpoint, Percy said. If we're sitting ducks in a defensible position with clear sight lines, I can use my water techniques for area denial. Nobody reaches us without getting through me. They considered it risky, Hannah said, but might work better than wandering where stronger teams can pick us off. Vote, Ren suggested. 3 hands rose. Tower it is. The tower sat in the forest's exact center. A 3-story structure that looked ancient. The clearing around it was open ground. Tactically terrible for defenders, perfect for Percy's purposes. They approached carefully, Hannah scanning for traps or hidden enemies. The tower appeared empty. Too quiet, Ren muttered. Percy felt it too. His enhanced awareness screamed warning. Something was wrong with this picture. Then he noticed the seals. They were carved into the tower's foundation, barely visible under moss and age. The same symbols he'd seen in the barracks basement. The same ones from Zeno's scroll chamber. We've got a problem, Percy said quietly. Before he could explain, Hannah gasped. Chakra signatures. Multiple. Converging on our position. Percy's tactical awareness mapped them instantly. 6 teams. 18 people. Coming from all directions. Coordinated timing suggesting prior planning. Ambush. Ren breathed. We walked right into an ambush I set, said a voice. Katsuro stepped from the tower entrance, that cold smile fixed in place. Behind him, 5 other teams emerged from the forest, surrounding Percy's team completely. Hello again, Percy Jackson, Katsuro said. Thank you for bringing me both scrolls. This saves me considerable effort. Percy's hand went to Riptide. His teammates moved into defensive positions. 18 against 3. Terrible odds. And Katsuro had been planning this from the start. How did you know we'd come here? Percy demanded, buying time while his mind raced through options. Because you're smart, Katsuro replied. Smart people recognize defensible positions. I counted on you reaching that conclusion. He gestured at the other teams. These fine competitors and I have an arrangement. We eliminate you 3, split the scrolls, and proceed to the finals. Where you'll betray them, Percy guessed. Eventually. But that's future concerns. Katsuro's eyes gleamed. Right now, I'm interested in testing your divine training against my own. Show me what the Omni King taught you. Percy felt his teammates tense. They were outnumbered 6-1. The smart play was surrender. But Percy had never been good at smart plays. He reached out with his senses. Water sources. The stream they'd passed, underground water table 15 feet down, morning dew on every leaf, humidity in the air. More than enough. Ren, Percy said quietly. When I say, now, create an earth wall behind us. Highest you can manage. That's. Hannah, identify the strongest chakra user in each team. Percy, we can't. Trust me. His tone left no room for argument. Both teammates shifted their stances. Ready to move. Katsuro raised one hand. Last chance to surrender. Percy smiled. It was sharp, dangerous, and not entirely his own expression. The tactical knowledge was bleeding through, showing him exactly how to win this. Counter offer, Percy said. Last chance to walk away. Then he pulled on every water source within 200 feet. The forest exploded into motion. Water burst from the ground, formed from the air, ripped out of the stream. Percy shaped it into a wave 20 feet high and sent it crashing toward the surrounding teams. Chaos erupted. Teams scattered. Some tried earth walls. Others attempted wind techniques to divert the water. One team just ran. Percy didn't let up. He created 6 water spears and launched them at the strongest fighters Hannah had identified, not to kill, but to keep them defensive. Then he condensed water into a dome around his own team. Now, he shouted. Ren slammed his hands down. Earth surged upward behind them, creating a wall 30 feet high that sealed them inside the dome with their backs protected. Percy extended his senses. Katsuro's team hadn't scattered. They stood in formation, and the white-haired shinobi looked pleased. Impressive, Katsuro called through the water dome. But you've trapped yourself. What now? Percy dropped the dome, letting water splash harmlessly. Now we negotiate. Negotiate. Katsuro laughed. You're surrounded. Am I? Percy gestured at the other teams, who were regrouping but keeping their distance. Because from here, it looks like they're reconsidering your alliance. I just demonstrated I can take on multiple teams simultaneously. You promised them an easy fight. That was a lie. He saw doubt flicker through the surrounding competitors. Percy pressed the advantage. Here's what happens next, he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. My team heads into that tower. Anyone who tries to stop us fights me directly. And I promise you, I have enough water and enough power to take you all down before I'm done. Bold claim, Katsuro said. Want to test it? They locked eyes. Percy felt that cold tactical knowledge calculating odds, running probability matrices, identifying weaknesses. And what it found was interesting. Katsuro wanted Percy to fight. Not here, not now, but eventually. This whole setup was a test. You're not trying to eliminate me, Percy said slowly. You're measuring me. Katsuro's smile widened. Clever boy. Yes, I wanted to see how you'd handle impossible odds. And I have my answer. He turned to the other teams. Our arrangement is concluded. Do what you want. The teams looked at each other, confused. Then one by one, they retreated into the forest. Too much risk, not enough reward. Within minutes, only Percy's team and Katsuro's remained. I'll see you in the finals, Katsuro said. Assuming you survive the next 4 days. But I think you will. You're more interesting than I expected, Percy Jackson. He vanished into the forest with his team, leaving Percy shaking with adrenaline. What? Ren said carefully. The hell was that? That was Percy Jackson being terrifying, Hannah answered. Did you just bluff 6 teams into retreating? Mostly bluff, Percy admitted. I could probably take 3 teams. 6 would have killed me. But they didn't know that. No, they didn't. They entered the tower carefully. The interior was empty except for a single room with instructions on the wall. Open both scrolls here, it read. Percy and Ren opened their scrolls simultaneously. Smoke poured out, and a figure materialized, a chunin instructor. Congratulations on passing, the instructor said. You've demonstrated resource acquisition and survival capability. You will remain here until the exam period concludes. Food and bunks are upstairs. Then he vanished. The 3 teammates looked at each other. We actually did it, Ren said, sounding shocked. In under 2 hours, Hannah added. And made a terrifying enemy, Percy finished. Don't forget that part. But despite the danger, despite Katsuro's ominous promise, Percy felt something close to pride. They'd survived. They'd worked as a team. And his new abilities, the tactical knowledge, the enhanced awareness, had helped without consuming him. He was still Percy Jackson. Just sharper around the edges. So, Ren said, heading for the stairs, who wants to bet the next exam is even worse? Not taking that bet, Hannah replied. Percy followed them up, riptide finally sheathed. Through a window, he glimpsed the forest stretching endlessly. Somewhere out there, Katsuro was planning their next confrontation. And somewhere beyond this dimension, Percy's real world waited for him to find a way home. But first, he had to survive the chunin exams. And something told him the real challenges hadn't even started yet. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Blood and Steel. 4 days in the tower felt like 4 years. Percy spent most of it training in the courtyard, pushing his new tactical knowledge to its limits while trying to keep his humanity intact. The cold analytical overlay kept suggesting more efficient ways to fight, better methods to kill, optimal strike points for maximum damage. He ignored those suggestions and focused on control instead. Ren and Hannah watched from the sidelines, Akka, Shinali offering input but mostly staying quiet. They'd seen what Percy could do when pressed. Now they were seeing him try to master it. On day 3, another team arrived, badly injured, scrolls clutched in bloody hands. Percy helped carry them inside while Hannah applied basic first aid. They'd been attacked by something in the forest. Something that wasn't another team. Giant snake, the team leader gasped. 30 feet long. Moved like lightning. We barely escaped. The forest of death lives up to its name, Ren muttered. 2 more teams trickled in on day 4. One looked relatively fresh. The other had clearly fought multiple battles, their clothes torn and stained. 5 teams total had made it to the tower. 15 people out of 31. Katsuro's team never appeared, which meant they were either eliminated or waiting outside, and Percy strongly suspected the latter. On the morning of day 5, Enko materialized in the tower's main hull with her usual dramatic flair. Congratulations, survivors, she announced. You didn't die horribly in my forest. I'm almost disappointed. 15 of you made it through, which means the 3rd exam will actually be interesting. She pulled out a scroll. Here's the bad news, we can't have 15 people in the finals. Too many matches, not enough time. So we're doing preliminary rounds. Right now. Groans echoed through the hall. Percy felt exhaustion in his bones. But his tactical mind was already assessing the other competitors. Who posed the biggest threat? Who was injured? Who would make mistakes? He forced those thoughts down. These were people, not chess pieces. Follow me to the arena, Enko commanded. And try to look impressive. We've got spectators. The arena was underground, a massive circular space with observation decks built into the walls. Percy emerged into harsh artificial lighting and saw faces watching from above, Jonin instructors, village officials, and others whose significance he couldn't determine. The 15 competitors lined up. Percy spotted Katsuro at the far end, looking completely relaxed despite supposedly spending 5 days in a death forest. Their eyes met. Katsuro smiled. A new proctor appeared, a sickly-looking man with dark circles under his eyes and a persistent cough. I'm Hayate Gecko, he said between coughs. Proctor for the preliminary matches. The rules are MPLE. Fight until your opponent can't continue, surrenders, or I call the match. Killing is prohibited. A board behind him lit up with names in random pairings. Percy scanned for his name and found it in the 3rd match. Percy Jackson vs. Ayame Mizushima. Oh no, Ren whispered beside him. What? Percy looked at the name again. It sounded familiar, but then she stepped forward from the line of competitors. And Percy's brain stuttered. She was maybe 17, with long dark blue hair pulled into a practical braid. Her eyes were pale gray, almost silver, and they studied him with the kind of focus that suggested she saw through every defense he had. She wore the standard hidden mist tactical gear, but moved with a fluidity that spoke of absolute mastery. Beautiful. Dangerous. Both facts registered simultaneously. That's Ayame Mizushima, Hannah whispered. Ice release specialist. She's eliminated 17 competitors in previous exams. Her record is perfect. She's never lost a preliminary match. Fantastic, Percy muttered. Ayame caught his eye from across the arena. Something flickered in her expression. Curiosity, maybe. She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to figure out a puzzle. First match, Hayate announced. Ren Takeuchi vs Shiro Himura. Everyone else, to the observation deck. Percy climbed the stairs with the other competitors, unable to stop watching Ayame. She moved like water herself, each step precise and economical. When she reached the deck, she positioned herself at the railing with perfect sight lines to the arena floor. Ren's match started below. His opponent was a hidden stone shinobi with earth-style techniques similar to Ren's. It became a battle of who could manipulate terrain faster. "Your friend is skilled," said a voice beside Percy. He turned. Ayame stood 3 feet away, arms folded on the railing, eyes still on the fight below. "He's held his own so far," Percy replied carefully. "But he's tired. 5 days in the forest with minimal rest. His chakra control is sloppy." She glanced at Percy. "You're the dimensional anomaly. The one everyone's talking about. Percy Jackson. And yeah, I get that a lot. You don't have a chakra signature." It wasn't a question. Hannah's been discussing it with other sensor types. You register as something else entirely. Like ocean water given form. Poetic way to put it. Accurate way. Ayame turned to face him fully. "I watched your display outside the tower. That water manipulation. That's not ninjutsu. That's something else." Percy met her gaze. "Does that bother you?" "It intrigues me." A small smile played at the corner of her mouth. "I've spent my entire life perfecting ice techniques. Following forms, mastering chakra control, adhering to tradition. Then you appear from another dimension with power that ignores every rule I know. It's either inspiring or infuriating. I haven't decided which." Below them, Ren created a massive stone pillar that launched his opponent into the air. Shiro countered by creating a platform mid-flight. The battle became increasingly vertical. "Why ice?" Percy asked. Ayame raised an eyebrow. "Why water? It's what I'm good at. Inherited from my dad." Inherited. She tested the word. "I suppose that's one form of legacy. Mine is clan obligation. The Mizushima bloodline carries ice release. We're expected to master it perfectly or shame generations of ancestors." That sounds like a lot of pressure. It is. But pressure creates diamonds. She looked back at the fight. Or it crushes you. Depends on the person. Ren won his match by creating a stone cage that his opponent couldn't escape. Hayate called it, and both combatants returned to the deck, Ren looking exhausted but victorious. Second match, Hayate announced. Katsuro Yami vs Daichi Kurosawa. Katsuro descended the stairs with that unsettling grace. His opponent was a stocky hidden cloud shinobi who radiated confidence. The match lasted 12 seconds. Daichi opened with a lightning technique that should have paralyzed Katsuro instantly. Katsuro moved through it like the electricity didn't exist, closed distance before Daichi could react, and placed one hand on his opponent's chest. Void energy erupted, not explosive or flashy, just erasure. Daichi's lightning chakra vanished like it had never existed. Then Katsuro swept his legs and put a kunai to his throat before he hit the ground. "Winner. Katsuro Yami," Hayate called, looking disturbed. Katsuro returned to the observation deck. Every competitor gave him space. Percy watched him carefully, and his tactical knowledge screamed warnings. That wasn't just skill. That was something fundamentally wrong with reality around Katsuro. The way his technique worked, it didn't counter attacks. It erased them, like they'd never been cast. "He's the one you should worry about," Ayame said quietly. "Not me. I worry about everyone equally," Percy replied. "Liar. I saw you watching him. You recognize the danger." She paused. "Good. That means you're not stupid. Stupid opponents are boring." Third match, Hayate called. Percy Jackson vs Ayame Mizushima. Combatants to the arena floor. Percy's heart rate kicked up. Ayame pushed off from the railing and headed for the stairs. Percy followed, hyper-aware of every movement she made. They faced each other across 30 feet of arena floor. Hayate stood between them. "Standard rules apply," he said. "Fight until I call it. Ready." Percy uncapped Riptide. The pen transformed into 3 feet of cell. Celestial bronze that gleamed under the arena lights. Ayame's hands moved in rapid seals. Frost spread across the ground from her feet. "Begin," Hayate said, and vanished in a burst of speed. Ayame attacked first. Ice spears materialized from the frost-covered ground, launching toward Percy in a pattern designed to limit his movement options. Percy's tactical knowledge mapped trajectories instantly. He dove left, rolled, came up with Riptide cutting through 3 spears in a single swing. Celestial bronze shattered ice like glass. But Ayame was already moving, forming new seals. The moisture in the air crystallized into a wall of ice between them. Percy sensed her chakra signature on the other side, circling left, building speed. He called water from the pipes running beneath the arena. They burst with a satisfying crack, flooding the floor. Percy shaped the water into a wave and sent it crashing toward the ice wall. The wall didn't break. It absorbed the water, grew thicker, extended upward. "Clever," Ayame's voice echoed from behind the ice. "But you're thinking like a water user. Ice is just frozen water. I can control it too." The ice wall exploded outward in thousands of shards. Percy barely got a water shield up in time. The shards punched into it like bullets, and several broke through to slash his arms and cheek. First blood to Ayame. Percy ignored the pain and pulled harder on the water. The flood on the arena floor rose into tentacles, 6 of them, each moving independently. He sent them at Ayame from multiple angles. She danced between them. Her movements were incredible, each dodge perfectly timed, never wasting motion. When one tentacle got too close, she froze it solid with a touch. Percy tried to break her frozen constructs with brute force. They shattered, but Ayame just made more. She was fast, efficient, and reading his attacks like she'd studied his fighting style for years. His tactical overlay started suggesting kill shots, weak points, lethal strike zones. Percy shoved those thoughts aside. This was an exam, not a war. He changed tactics. Instead of overwhelming force, he went for precision. Water condensed into a single pressurized stream, thin as a needle. Moving faster than a bullet. Ayame sensed it coming and created an ice shield. The water stream punched through, forcing her to dodge. But that dodge put her exactly where Percy wanted. 3 more water streams converged on her position. She couldn't dodge all of them. So she didn't try. Instead, Ayame formed seals so fast Percy almost didn't track them. The temperature around her dropped 20 degrees in an instant. His water streams froze mid-flight, becoming ice spears that she redirected back at him. Percy cut them down with Riptide, but the opening gave Ayame time to close distance. She came in fast, kunai in hand, going for close combat. Bad idea. Percy had been training with swords since he was 12. He parried her first strike, deflected the second, and disarmed her on the third. Riptide came around for what would have been a finishing blow, if this was a real fight. But Ayame didn't need the kunai. Her hand touched Percy's sword arm, and ice spread from the contact point. Not just cold. Absolute zero cold that burned worse than fire. Percy yelped and stumbled back, breaking contact. His arm was covered in frost, muscles screaming protest. He couldn't feel his fingers. Ayame pressed the advantage. Ice formed around her hands like claws. She came at him with a combination of strikes that forced Percy purely defensive. He couldn't block everything. An ice claw raked across his ribs, drawing blood through his shirt. Another grazed his shoulder. Ayame was faster than him in close quarters, more technical, more. Percy's tactical knowledge activated automatically, showing him the pattern in her attacks. She favored her right side by 3 degrees. That old injury to her left knee created a micro-hesitation in certain movements. Her ice claws were effective but limited her reach. He didn't want to use that information. It felt like cheating, like exploiting weaknesses that shouldn't matter in a training match. But Ayame showed no such hesitation. She was fighting to win. So Percy stopped holding back. When she came in with another combination, he read the pattern and moved through the gaps between strikes. His frozen sword arm was useless. So he dropped Riptide and caught her wrist with his good hand. Then he pulled on every water molecule in the arena. The flood rose into a sphere around them both. 30 feet of water in every direction. Suspended by Percy's will alone. Ayame's eyes widened. She tried to freeze it, but there was too much. Her chakra couldn't affect water this far from her body. Percy had her. He could crush her with pressure. Drown her, end this instantly. But he saw her face. Not panicked, but calculating. Still looking for an opening. Still fighting. And he realized she was magnificent. Yield, Percy said through the water. Her eyes met his. Silver against sea green. A moment of understanding passed between them. Make me, she replied. So Percy increased the pressure. Not enough to hurt, but enough to immobilize. Water pressed against Ayame from all sides, limiting movement to impossible levels. She struggled for 5 seconds. 10, 15. Then she went limp, conserving oxygen. Winner. Percy Jackson. Hayate called from outside the water sphere. Percy released his hold. The water crashed to the arena floor, leaving both fighters soaked and breathing hard. Ayame caught herself on hands and knees. Coughing. Percy offered his good hand. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she took it, and he pulled her up. That was incredible, Percy said. I lost. You lasted longer than anyone else could have. That water prison technique. Most people panic immediately. You stayed calm and looked for weaknesses. Ayame squeezed water from her braid. There weren't any weaknesses. You had complete control. She looked at him. Where did you learn to fight like that? I've been doing this since I was 12. Monsters, wars, quests. You learn fast or die. Monsters. She tested the word. In my world, monsters are what we call missing nin who've abandoned their humanity. What are yours? Greek mythology come to life. Things with too many heads and bad attitudes. A smile ghosted across her face. That sounds terrible. It has its moments. They climbed back to the observation deck together. Percy's frozen arm was starting to thaw, pins and needles sensation racing through dead tissue. Ayame walked with a slight limp he hadn't noticed during the fight, that knee injury his tactical knowledge had identified. Ren met them at the top. That was insane. You created a water prison the size of a house. And nearly lost doing it, Percy countered. She was 3 seconds from figuring out how to freeze the entire sphere from the inside out. 2 seconds, Ayame corrected. But you sensed the strategy shift and adjusted pressure accordingly. Smart. Hana approached, her sensory gaze moving between them. Your chakra signatures synchronized during the fight. I've never seen that happen with non-teammates. What does that mean? Percy asked. It means you fight well together. Or against each other. Same principle. Hana looked at Ayame. You're from Hidden Mist. Are you here alone? My teammates were eliminated in the forest. Ayame's expression remained neutral, but Percy caught the flash of pain. I continued solo. That's... Ren started. Impressive. Percy interrupted. Surviving the forest of death alone is harder than doing it with a team. Ayame met his eyes. Thank you. The preliminary matches continued. 6 more fights, each brutal in its own way. Hana won her match through superior tactical awareness. Another competitor was carried out on a stretcher after refusing to yield. Katsuro won his second fight even faster than his first. By the end, 8 people remained standing. Hayate coughed into his hand. Percy saw blood on his palm, and announced, these 8 will compete in the final examination 1 month from today. That gives you time to train, recover, and prepare new techniques. The finals will be public, with spectators including the Hokage and representatives from allied villages. Your performance will determine not just promotion, but reputation. He pulled out 8 slips of paper. Draw for tournament bracket position. Percy drew number 3. Ayame drew number 4. Why? CH meant if they both won their first matches, they'd fight again in the semifinals. Percy caught her eye. She smiled. Not friendly, not hostile. Just acknowledgement of inevitable conflict. Dismissed, Hayate said. Use your month wisely. Quote, the next 3 days were a blur of medical attention, debriefings, and awkward conversations with Konoha officials who didn't know what to do with a dimensional traveler. Percy got a small apartment on the village outskirts, 1 room, basic furniture, and a window overlooking the training grounds. It wasn't much, but it was better than the barracks. On his 4th night, someone knocked. Percy opened the door to find Ayame standing there in civilian clothes, a simple dark blue dress that somehow made her look more dangerous, not less. Can I come in? She asked. Percy stepped aside. She entered, glanced around the sparse room, and sat on the single chair. Nice place, she said. You're lying. Completely. This apartment is depressing. Percy leaned against the wall. What can I do for you? Ayame was quiet for a moment, choosing words carefully. I've been thinking about our fight. About how you held back. I didn't. You did. Multiple times. I saw the calculations in your eyes. You were analyzing weaknesses but choosing not to exploit them. She met his gaze. Why? Percy considered lying. Decided against it. Because this is training. Because hurting you more than necessary felt wrong. Because. He trailed off. Because you deserve better than someone who fights dirty in a sparring match. Ayame studied him like he was a particularly complex seal. That's both honorable and stupid. Story of my life. The finals won't be like the preliminaries, she continued. The stakes are higher. The audience expects spectacle. If we fight again, I won't hold back. I can't. I'm not asking you to. No, you're not. Ayame stood. But I am asking you something. When we fight again, if we fight again, I want you to use everything. No hesitation. No mercy. Because I need to know. Know what? If I can beat someone who fights with absolute commitment. She moved toward the door, paused with her hand on the handle. I've been training since I was 4 years old. Following forms, perfecting techniques, meeting expectations. But I've never fought anyone who made me want to be better. Until you. Percy felt something shift in his chest. That's the nicest and most threatening thing anyone's ever said to me. Ayame smiled. A real smile this time. Good. Now get some rest. You look terrible. You're a poet. She left, and Percy stood alone in his depressing apartment, trying to process what just happened. His tactical knowledge was no help. It could map combat strategies and predict fight outcomes, but human connection. That was beyond its capabilities. Percy was on his own for this one. Training consumed the next week. Percy spent hours in the forests outside Konoha, pushing his water manipulation to new limits. He practiced forming constructs faster, holding them longer, using less effort for maximum impact. But more importantly, he practiced control. The tactical knowledge Zeno's scroll had given him was powerful, but dangerous. It wanted him to optimize everything, remove inefficiency, calculate perfect outcomes. That wasn't living. That was being a machine. So Percy fought against it. He made deliberately inefficient attacks. He chose suboptimal strategies. He reminded himself constantly that people weren't probabilities. They were variables with feelings, motivations, and the capacity to surprise. On day 9, Kakashi found him demolishing a hillside with water pressure. Impressive, the Jonin said, appearing from nowhere as usual. But you're broadcasting intent 3 seconds before each attack. Quote, Percy released his water constructs. I wasn't aware I had an audience. You always have an audience in a ninja village. That's lesson 1. Kakashi pulled out a small orange book and started reading while talking. I've been watching you train. Your power is immense, but your technique is rough. Self-taught, mostly. I had some instruction, but my fighting style is adaptable. Too adaptable. You have no core form. That makes you unpredictable, which is good. But it also means you have no foundation to return to when stressed. Kakashi turned a page. Tell me about this tactical knowledge you supposedly received. Percy hesitated. How did you? Ren talks. Hana confirms. And I'm excellent at gathering intelligence. Kakashi looked up from his book. Divine intervention is rare but not unheard of. Usually it comes with a price. What's yours? The knowledge wants me to fight efficiently. Perfectly. Without emotion or hesitation. And you're resisting that. Yes. Good. Kakashi closed his book. Perfect efficiency in combat means losing sight of why you're fighting. Shinobi who chase perfection become tools. Tools break. Humans adapt. He gestured at the demolished hillside. You're strong, Percy Jackson. Maybe the strongest competitor in your generation. But Katsuro Yami is dangerous in ways strength can't counter. He fights like he has nothing to lose. That makes him unpredictable in the worst way. You've fought people like him before. Kakashi's visible eye went distant. I've fought people who threw away their humanity for power. It never ends well, for them or their opponents. He refocused. My advice, don't try to match his efficiency. Keep your inefficiencies. They're what make you human. He vanished in a swirl of leaves. leaving Percy alone with demolished Earth and too many thoughts. 2 weeks before the finals, Percy received a message requesting his presence at the Hokage's office. The Hokage Tower was the tallest building in Konoha, and Hiruzen Sarutobi's office sat at its peak. Percy climbed countless stairs, was searched twice by serious-looking guards, and finally admitted to a circular room lined with windows. The Hokage was older than Percy expected, maybe 70, with a lined face that spoke of too many hard decisions. He wore traditional robes and a hat with the kanji for fire emblazoned on it. But his eyes were sharp, assessing Percy with the same tactical awareness Percy had gained from Zeno's scroll. "Percy Jackson," the Hokage said. "Please, sit." Percy took the offered chair. 2 Anbu operatives stood in the corners, masked, silent, probably capable of killing him before he could blink. "You've caused quite a stir in my village," the Hokage continued. "Dimensional travelers are rare. Powerful dimensional travelers are rarer still. And dimensional travelers who receive divine training." He smiled. "That's unprecedented. I didn't ask for any of this, sir. Few people ask for their circumstances. We adapt to them." The Hokage pulled out a file, Percy's file, apparently. "You've performed admirably in the exams. Your teammates speak highly of you. Even Kakashi, who's notoriously difficult to impress, thinks you have potential." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. I have questions." The Hokage set down the file. "Your world operates on different principles than ours. Different gods, different power structures. Tell me, what prevents you from simply overpowering everyone in the finals and demanding we send you home?" Percy considered his answer carefully. "Because that would make me a threat, not an ally. And because forcing cooperation never works long-term. I'd rather earn your help than steal it." Philosophical answer, but correct. The Hokage nodded. "Our research division has been studying the dimensional rifts. They've increased in frequency over the past 6 months. Small tears, quickly sealed, but concerning nonetheless. Why? Our arrival suggests the barriers between worlds are weakening. Is that bad? Potentially catastrophic. If the barriers collapse, we'd face invasions from countless realities. Resources would be contested. Wars would erupt on scales we can't imagine." Percy felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "You think I'm connected to that somehow? I think your presence here is a symptom of a larger problem. But you're not the cause." The Hokage pulled out another document. "We've detected unusual energy signatures near the village. Similar to the portal you came through, but corrupted. Intentionally destabilized. Someone's tearing holes in reality on purpose. That's our theory. And I believe they were present during the exams." The Hokage's expression hardened. "The seals you noticed in the Forest of Death Tower. Those shouldn't exist. Someone carved them recently. The same symbols have appeared in 3 other locations around the village." Percy thought about the Greek letters on the barracks door. The symbols on Zeno's scroll. "Do you know what they mean?" "Our seal masters are working on translations. But preliminary analysis suggests they're anchors, designed to stabilize dimensional rifts and keep them open." "Why would anyone want that?" "Power. Access to other worlds means access to new techniques, new resources, new weapons." The Hokage leaned back. "Or perhaps belief. There are cults who worship beings from beyond our reality. They seek to bring their gods through." Percy remembered Katsuro's tattoo. "The death god's seal." "You think Katsuro is involved?" Percy said. "I think Katsuro Yami is many things, few of them good. His village reports disturbing changes in his behavior over the past year. Training obsessively, refusing missions, and his technique. Void release doesn't exist in any known bloodline. He acquired it from somewhere. You want me to watch him during the finals. I want you to survive him during the finals. And if possible, discover what he's planning." The Hokage's gaze intensified. "You're an outsider, Percy Jackson. That means you see patterns we might miss. Use that advantage." Percy stood to leave, then paused. "Sir, if the barriers between worlds are breaking down, what happens to people like me? Trapped in the wrong reality?" The Hokage was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but I promise you this, if it's possible to send you home. We'll find the way. You have my word." It wasn't much, but it was something. Percy left the tower feeling the weight of new responsibility. He'd thought the exams were just about survival. Now they were about preventing dimensional collapse. No pressure. 1 week before the finals, Ayame found him training again. Percy was working on a technique he called water clones, not actual clones, but constructs shaped like him that could move independently. They weren't perfect. The faces looked wrong, and they couldn't speak. But they could fight. Impressive, Ayame said from the tree line. How many can you maintain simultaneously? Percy counted. 4, maybe 5 before I lose fine control. Why? Because I can make 3 ice clones with full combat capability. She stepped into the clearing. Want to test 4 versus 3? Percy grinned. You're on. They fought for 20 minutes. Percy's water constructs against Ayame's ice clones. It was chaos. Constructs shattered and reformed. Ice met water in clouds of mist. At one point Percy lost track of which Ayame was real and accidentally tackled a clone. When they finally called it a draw, both were laughing and exhausted. You fight like you're having fun, Ayame observed, sitting on a fallen log. I try to. Percy joined her. Combat's serious, but if you can't find joy in it, what's the point? Survival. Survival's the baseline. Joy is the goal. Ayame pulled water from a canteen and froze it into complex crystalline patterns, art made from ice. My clan would call that philosophy weakness. They believe combat is sacred. Treating it as entertainment dishonors those who died in battle. That's a depressing way to live. It's tradition. Tradition can be wrong. Percy watch. Edgar create an ice sculpture of a bird mid-flight. You're incredible at this. The control, the precision, that's not just training. That's talent. Ayame's hands stilled. Don't what? Don't try to separate skill from work. I'm good because I practiced 10,000 hours. Not because I'm special. Why can't it be both? She looked at him, silver eyes unreadable. Because if it's talent, then I didn't earn it. And if I didn't earn it, it can be taken away. Percy understood that fear. He'd felt it every time he questioned whether his achievements were his own or just Poseidon's DNA expressing itself. I don't think it works that way, he said carefully. Talent might give you a head start, but mastery. That's all you. Nobody handed you those ice clones. You built them from thousands of failed attempts. Tens of thousands, Ayame corrected. A small smile. My clan compound has a graveyard of shattered ice sculptures. Each one a lesson. See, that's not talent. That's stubbornness. Is there a difference? Probably not. They sat in comfortable silence while Ayame finished her ice bird. When complete, she set it on Percy's palm. It was cold but beautiful, every feather detailed. Wings spread for flight. For luck, she said. In the finals, Ayame, we're probably going to fight each other. I know. But until then, we can be friends. She stood. Strange concept, I realize. Being friends with someone you'll eventually fight seriously. Percy looked at the ice bird. It was already melting in his warm hand, becoming water that ran through his fingers. Not that strange, he said. I've fought friends before. It's never easy, but it doesn't erase the friendship. Your world sounds complicated. Yours isn't. Fair point. Ayame turned to leave, then paused. Percy, when we fight in the finals, if we fight, I meant what I said. No holding back. I need to see what I'm really capable of when pushed to the limit. You'll beat me, Percy said. She raised an eyebrow. That's either very confident or very stupid. I'm saying you'll push me hard enough that I have to be better. That's you beating the version of me that exists right now. Ayame considered that. Philosopher and fighter. Dangerous combination. I try. She left through the trees, moving like shadow. Percy sat alone with a melting ice bird and the growing certain tie that the finals were going to be far more complicated than he'd anticipated. The night before the finals, Percy couldn't sleep. He stood on his apartment balcony, watching Konoha's lights twinkle in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Katsuro was preparing. Ayame was training. The Hokage was worrying about dimensional rifts and reality collapse. And Percy was just a kid from Manhattan trying to survive long enough to get home. His tactical knowledge whispered strategies. Optimal attack patterns. Probability matrices for tournament outcomes. Ways to exploit every competitor's weaknesses. Percy told it to shut up. Tomorrow wasn't about efficiency or perfect technique. Tomorrow was about proving, to the Hokage, to Ayame, to himself, that borrowed power could be tempered with humanity. That being strong didn't require abandoning what made you human. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Percy opened it to find Ren and Hannah standing there with a bag of food. Pre-finals feast, Ren announced, pushing past Percy. You can't fight on an empty stomach. It's 11 p.m., Percy protested. Which means it's technically still before the finals. Ren started unpacking food. We brought everything. Ramen, dumplings, rice balls. This is way too much food. That's not possible, Hannah said seriously. There's no such thing as too much pre-battle food. It's science. EY spread the meal across Percy's tiny table. It was chaotic, messy, and exactly what Percy needed. So, Ren said through a mouthful of noodles, tournament predictions. Percy fights Katsuro in the finals. Defeats him through clever water tactics and protagonist energy. I lose gracefully in the first round. Hannah makes it to semifinals on pure skill. I appreciate your confidence in me, Hannah said dryly. But I drew the worst possible first opponent. That hidden stone Jonin's daughter. You'll figure it out. You always do. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ren spoke up again. Hey, Percy, whatever happens tomorrow, thanks for being a decent teammate. Most people would have used us as tools to advance. You actually gave a damn. Of course I did. That's what teams are for. Not in the exam system. Hannah said quietly. Usually teams are just tactical advantages. People discard them as soon as convenient. Percy thought about Camp Half-Blood. About quests where High's friends had his back even when the odds were impossible. About Annabeth, Grover, and everyone else who'd proven family was chosen, not assigned. Then the system's wrong, Percy said. You don't abandon people who fight beside you. Ren raised his cup of water. To Team Misfit, may we fail spectacularly and with style. To not dying, Hannah added. To getting home, Percy finished. Eventually, they drank, and the night stretched on with stories, laughter, and the kind of camaraderie that only forms when people have survived something terrible together. Around midnight, Ren and Hannah finally left. Percy tried to sleep but his mind kept racing. He thought about the tournament brackets, about Katsuro's void techniques, about Ayame's promise to hold nothing back. About the seals hid, den around Konoha and whatever cult was trying to tear holes in reality. He must have dozed eventually because he woke to sunlight streaming through his window and someone pounding on his door. Percy Jackson, a voice shouted. You have 30 minutes to report to the stadium or you're disqualified. Percy scrambled out of bed, pulled on his clothes, and grabbed Riptide. He made it to the stadium with 3 minutes to spare, still trying to wake up fully. The arena had been transformed. Where the preliminary matches had been underground and private, the finals were public spectacle. Thousands of civilians packed the stands. Banners hung from every surface. And at the highest box, Percy spotted the Hokage surrounded by officials and representatives from other villages. This wasn't just an exam anymore. This was politics. The 8 finalists gathered in a waiting area beneath the stands. Percy spotted Ayame immediately. She wore ceremonial robes over her combat gear, hair braided with silver thread. She looked like she'd stepped out of a painting. Katsuro stood apart from everyone, eyes closed, perfectly still. The death god's mark on his wrist seemed to pulse with dark energy. Ren bounced on his toes nervously. Hannah meditated in the corner. The other 4 competitors, all from villages Percy didn't recognize, clustered together and spoke in low voices. Hayate appeared, looking even more sickly than before. First match begins in 5 minutes. Ren Takeuchi vs Hisako Kato. Prepare yourselves. Ren shot Percy a panicked look. Percy gave him a thumbs up. You've got this, Percy said. Remember, she favors Earth style like you. So make it a contest of who adapts faster, not who's stronger. Right, adaptation. I can do that. Ren took a deep breath. Okay, not panicking at all. You're panicking a lot, Hannah observed. Helpful, thanks. The announcer's voice boomed through the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chunin Selection Exam Finals. The crowd roared. Percy felt the sound vibrate through his chest. Our first match. Ren Takeuchi of Konohagakure vs Hisako Kato of Iwagakure. Ren walked toward the arena entrance. Percy caught his arm. Hey, Percy said, win or lose, you made it this far. That's already impressive. Ren managed a shaky smile. See you on the other side, dimensional boy. He disappeared into the tunnel. Percy moved to the observation window with Hana, watching as Ren emerged into the stadium. The crowd's energy was overwhelming. Cheers, jeers, excited chatter creating a wall of sound. Hisako entered from the opposite side. She was stocky, built like a tank, with Earth style written all over her stance. Hayate raised his hand. Begin. The fight started cautiously. Both competitors tested each other with small techniques: stone projectiles, terrain manipulation, defensive walls. Ren was faster. Hisako was stronger. For 3 minutes it seemed evenly matched. Then Hisako revealed her trump card. She slammed both hands into the ground, and the entire arena floor turned to quicksand. Ren sank immediately. He tried to create stone platforms, but they dissolved into the liquefied earth. Panic flashed across his face. Stay calm, Percy muttered, knowing Ren couldn't hear him. Think, adapt. For a terrible moment, it looked like Ren would lose. He was chest deep in quicksand, chakra draining as he fought to stay afloat. Then he stopped struggling. Ren went completely still, closed his eyes, and focused. The quicksand around him began to solidify, not into normal earth, but into sea. Compressed stone that formed a platform under his feet. He wasn't fighting Hisako's technique. He was working with it. Ren rose from the quicksand on a stone pillar, hands moving through seals. The quicksand responded, forming waves that crashed toward Hisako. She tried to counter, but Ren had stolen her technique and improved it. The liquefied earth wrapped around her like chains, pulling her down. Hayate called the match. Winner. Ren Takeuchi. The crowd went wild. Percy and Hana cheered from the observation window. Ren emerged from the tunnel 5 minutes later, soaked in sweat and grinning like an idiot. Did you see that? He shouted. I turned her technique against her. I'm a genius. You're a genius who almost drowned in quicksand, Hana said. But yes, impressive adaptation. Percy clapped him on the shoulder. Told you, adaptation beats raw power. The next match was called Hana vs. Sake Ishida, the hidden stone Jonin's daughter. Percy watched from the window. Hana used her sensory abilities to predict every attack 3 moves in advance. It wasn't flashy, but it was brutally effective. Sake never landed a single hit. Winner. Hana Shimizu. 2 teammates in the semifinals. Percy felt a surge of pride. The third match featured 2 competitors from smaller villages. It was a straightforward brawl. Lots of power, minimal strategy. The bigger guy won. Then came the match Percy had been dreading. Fourth match. Katsuro Yami vs. Daigo Tanaka. Katsuro moved into the arena like death incarnate. His opponent, Daigo, was a wind-style specialist Fr. Hidden cloud with a reputation for speed. The match lasted 18 seconds. Daigo opened with his fastest technique, a wind blade that could cut steel. Katsuro didn't dodge. The blade hit his chest and vanished. Not deflected, not blocked, just erased from existence. Daigo's eyes widened. He tried again with a different technique. Same result. Katsuro closed the distance in a burst of speed that shouldn't have been possible. He placed one hand on Daigo's shoulder, and void energy pulsed outward. Daigo collapsed, unconscious, chakra completely drained. Winner. Katsuro Yami, Hayate announced, looking disturbed. The crowd was silent. Even the civilians could tell something was wrong with that technique. Katsuro walked past the observation window on his way back. His eyes found Percy's. You're next, he said quietly. Don't disappoint me. Percy's tactical knowledge screamed warnings. Katsuro's void techniques didn't just counter attacks, they negated existence itself. Fighting him meant fighting entropy. Fifth match. Percy Jackson vs. Yuta Sasaki. Percy took a deep breath and walked into the tunnel. The roar of the crowd hit him like a physical force as he emerged into the arena. Thousands of eyes watching, judging, waiting to see what the dimensional anomaly could do. His opponent, Yuta, was a lightning-style user from Hidden Cloud. Fast, precise, dangerous at range. Hayate raised his hand. Begin. Yuta opened with a lightning bolt that split the air with a crack. Percy dodged left, calling water from the underground pipes. The water rose in a protective barrier. But lightning conducted through it, forcing Percy to abandon the construct. Right. Lightning beats water. This was going to be complicated. Percy's tactical knowledge offered solutions. Exploit Yuta's reliance on ranged attacks. Force close combat where lightning techniques became dangerous to the user. Use environmental advantages. Percy uncapped Riptide and charged. Yuta's eyes widened. He'd expected ranged combat. Lightning crackled around Yuta's hands as he formed defensive seals. Percy read the pattern, predicted the discharge point, and dove under it. Riptide came up in a slash that would have disemboweled if this was real combat. Instead, Percy twisted at the last second, using the flat of the blade to slam into Yuta's ribs. The lightning user stumbled back, wind knocked out. Percy pressed the advantage. He created water constructs not to attack, but to limit movement. Walls of water that Yuta couldn't blast through with lightning without electrocuting himself. Pools on the ground that made footing treacherous. Yuta tried to adapt. He leapt to higher ground, using lightning to enhance his speed. But Percy anticipated the move and had water waiting. The constructs weren't powerful enough to hurt, but they were everywhere, limiting options, forcing Yuta into smaller and smaller tactical windows. Yield, Percy called out. You can't win a war of attrition. I'm not done yet. Yuta gathered chakra for one massive technique. Lightning coalesced around him in visible arcs. Percy saw it coming. His tactical mind calculated the discharge pattern, the area of effect, the exact timing. He pulled every drop of water from the arena floor and created a grounding rod, a spire of water reaching from earth to sky. When Yuta released his lightning, it followed the path of least resistance. Straight into Percy's water spire, then harmlessly into the ground. Yuta collapsed, chakra exhausted from the massive technique. Hayate called the match. Winner. Percy Jackson. The crowd roared approval. Percy helped Yuta to his feet. The lightning user looked dazed but uninjured. That was brilliant, Yuta said. I've never seen someone use water as a lightning rod. Physics is universal, Percy replied. Good fight. He returned to the observation area where Ren and Hana mobbed him with congratulations. But Percy's attention was on the final match. Sixth match. Ayame Mizushima vs Kenji Mori. Ayame entered the arena like she owned it. Her opponent, Kenji, was a taijutsu specialist, all close combat and physical enhancement techniques. Bad matchup for him. Ayame didn't need to get close. The fight was beautiful and brutal. Ayame created ice constructs with such precision they looked like art. Ice clones, ice weapons, ice barriers, that appeared and disappeared like she was conducting an orchestra. Kenji was skilled, but he never got within 10 feet of her. Every time he tried, ice stopped him. When he finally exhausted himself, Ayame created an ice prison that mirrored Percy's water prison technique. Yield, she said simply. Kenji, trapped and knowing he couldn't break free, yielded. Winner. Ayame Mizushima. She wall. Ked passed the observation window on her way back. Her eyes found Percy's, and something electric passed between them. Soon. Very soon. They'd face each other again. The semifinals were announced. Ren would fight the winner from match 3, the brawler with more power than strategy. Hana would face Katsuro. Percy would fight Ayame, and if Percy won, he'd likely face Katsuro in the finals. 15-minute break. The announcer called. Semifinals begin soon. Percy found Ayame on the roof of the waiting area. She stood at the edge, looking out over Konoha, her ceremonial robes fluttering in the wind. Nervous? Percy asked, joining her. Terrified, she admitted. Not of losing, of not being enough. You're more than enough. You don't know that. You've seen me fight once. She turned to face him. Percy, I need to ask you something. In the preliminaries, you held back. Will you do that again? Percy met her silver eyes. No, you asked me not to. Good. She looked relieved. Because I need to know if I can reach the level where holding back isn't an option. I need to be pushed to my absolute limit. Why? You're already one of the best fighters here. Because being good isn't enough. My clan expects perfection. The village expects excellence. And she paused, choosing words carefully. I expect to know what I'm truly capable of when nothing's held back. Percy understood that need. He'd felt it every time he pushed his powers further, testing boundaries he didn't know existed. Then I'll push you, he promised. But Ayame, don't forget, being the best fighter doesn't make you the best person. They're separate measurements. She smiled sadly. In my world, they're the same thing. Then your world's wrong. Maybe. She turned back to the village view. When I was 8, my clan compound was attacked. Raiders from a neighboring region. They killed 17 people before our defenders drove them off. I watched from a hiding spot while my uncle fought 3 opponents simultaneously. Percy stayed quiet, listening. He was magnificent. Ice techniques I'd never seen before. Perfect form. Absolute control. Ayame's voice went hollow. He killed all 3 attackers. Then collapsed from exhaustion. And while he lay there recovering, a 4th raider appeared and cut his throat. Ayame. He was the best fighter in our clan. But, best, wasn't enough when he let his guard down. So I promised myself I'd never stop until I knew, truly knew, that I'd reached the level where letting my guard down was safe. She looked at him. Can you understand that? Percy thought about Tartarus. About watching friends almost die because he hadn't been strong enough fast enough. About the nightmares where he failed to protect people he loved. Yeah, he said quietly. I understand. Semifinals beginning in 5 minutes. They walked back together. At the tunnel entrance, Ayame paused. No regrets? She asked. None. None. They parted ways. Percy to the observation area. Ayame to prepare for their match. Ren's semifinal was first. He fought with everything he had, but the brawler's raw power overwhelmed his technical skill. Ren lost but gave an incredible showing that had the crowd cheering. He emerged from the arena battered but grinning. Made it to semifinals. I'll take that. Then came the match everyone was dreading. Hana Shimizu vs Katsuro Yami. Hana entered the arena with her usual calm focus. Katsuro followed, radiating wrongness. The match was over before it began. Hana tried to use her sensory abilities to predict his attacks. But Katsuro's void techniques didn't register on chakra sensing. They existed in the spaces between reality. She tried everything. Shadow techniques, genjutsu, physical attacks. Nothing connected. Katsuro moved through her defenses like they didn't exist, and when he finally touched her, void energy pulsed. Hana collapsed. Not unconscious. Worse, her chakra system had been completely shut down. Medics rushed onto the field. Winner. Katsuro Yami, Hayate announced grimly. Percy watched medics carry Hana away on a stretcher. Ren stood beside him, fists clenched. He could have won without doing that. Ren said quietly. He chose to hurt her. I know. You're going to have to fight him if you win. I know that too. Katsuro walked past them. He didn't smile or gloat. Just walked past like nothing had happened. Percy felt cold rage building in his chest. That wasn't combat. That was cruelty. Final semifinal. Percy Jackson vs Ayame Mizushima. Time to focus. Percy pushed thoughts of Katsuro aside and walked into the tunnel. The arena had been repaired from the previous matches. Fresh earth, unmarked ground. A blank canvas for what came next. Ayame entered from the opposite tunnel. Their eyes met across 60 feet of arena floor. Hayate raised his hand. This match determines who faces Katsuro Yami in the finals. Fight with honor. Ready. Both nodded. Begin. Neither moved immediately. They circled, assessing, remembering the preliminary match and how it had played out. Ayame struck first. Ice spears erupted from the ground. In a pattern designed to limit Percy's movement. He dodged, calling water from underground to counter. But Ayame had learned from their first fight. When Percy's water rose, she didn't try to overpower it. She froze the surface layer, creating ice shields that his pressurized water couldn't penetrate. Percy adapted. He created water clones, 5 of them, each moving independently. They charged own different angles while the real Percy hung back. Ayame's ice clones met them. Constructs collided in explosions of mist. In the chaos, Percy slipped through. Riptide aimed for a disabling strike. Ayame sensed him coming. She spun, ice forming around her hand like a blade, and met his sword with her crystalline construct. They locked there for 3 seconds, Percy's celestial bronze against Ayame's ice. Both pouring power into the clash. You're holding back, Ayame said through gritted teeth. No, I'm not. Liar. I can see it in your eyes. The calculations. You're still analyzing, still looking for non-lethal solutions. Percy pushed harder. Their locked weapons began to crack. This is a tournament, not a war. Then stop treating me like I'm fragile. Ayame released her ice blade. Let Percy's momentum carry him forward, and created a new construct behind him. Ice chains wrapped around his sword arm. Percy called water to break them, but Ayame was already moving. She closed distance, bringing the fight to close quarters where her ice techniques were most effective. They traded blows at speeds that made the crowd gasp. Percy's sword work versus Ayame's ice-enhanced taijutsu. Neither could gain advantage for more than a second. Percy's tactical knowledge kept offering kill shots. Vulnerable points. Perfect strike angles. He ignored them all. Ayame noticed. You're still holding back. I'm not going to hurt you more than necessary. That's not your decision to make. She created an ice dome around them both, cutting off outside view. In the sudden privacy, her voice went quiet. Percy, I need you to understand something. I'm not asking you to hurt me. I'm asking you to respect me enough to fight like I'm your equal. Percy felt something click in his mind. She was right. By holding back, he was being condescending, treating her like she needed protection rather than like the warrior she was. Okay, Percy said. No more holding back. He released the limiters he'd unconsciously placed on his power. Water erupted from every source within 200 feet. Underground reserves, atmospheric moisture, even the ice in Ayame's constructs. The ice dome shattered. Water filled the arena in a rising tide that reached 20 feet high. Ayame tried to freeze it, but there was too much. Percy shaped it into a maelstrom with both of them at the center. The pressure was immense, the current powerful enough to break bones. But he gave her an out, a pocket of calm water directly in front of him. A place to yield safely. Ayame saw it, recognized it for what it was, and swam past it directly toward Percy. She couldn't breathe in the water. Her chakra was draining as she fought the current. But she reached him, hand outstretched, ice-forming arrow. Wound her fingers despite being underwater. Percy caught her hand. Their eyes met through the water. He saw absolute determination. No fear, no hesitation. Just the pure will to push further, be better, reach beyond limits. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Percy brought them both to the surface. They broke into air, gasping, still holding hands. The water receded. They stood in the center of the arena, soaked and exhausted. Draw, Percy offered. Ayame laughed. Actual laughter, bright and genuine. You're impossible. Is that a yes? No, I forfeit. What? Ayame, you were winning. I got what I needed. She squeezed his hand before releasing it. I pushed past my limits. Swam through water that should have crushed me. Reached you despite impossible odds. That's enough. But the finals were never the point. The point was proving to myself that I could be more than my clan's expectations. Mission accomplished. She smiled. Besides, someone needs to beat Katsuro. And I don't think that's going to be me. Hayate called the match. Winner by forfeit. Percy Jackson. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered, others seemed confused by the forfeit. Percy didn't care. He helped Ayame walk off the arena floor. Medics tried to check her, but she waved them off. I'm fine. Just tired. In the tunnel, away from the crowd, Percy stopped. Thank you for trusting me to push you. Thank you for finally doing it. Ayame touched his cheek briefly. Her hand was cold from ice techniques, but the gesture was warm. Win this, Percy Jackson. Not for me. Or everyone watching who needs to see that borrowed power can still have a soul. Then she walked away, leaving Percy alone with the weight of expectation and the knowledge that his next fight would be against something that existed in the spaces between reality itself. The finals were in 1 hour. Percy Jackson versus Katsuro Yami. And the fate of dimensional barriers might depend on the outcome. No pressure at all. Percy spent the hour with Ren, Hana, and surprisingly, Ayame. They'd commandeered a corner of the medical area where Hana was recovering. Her chakra system was slowly regenerating, but she looked pale. Katsuro's void techniques are beyond anything I've encountered, Hana said. They don't just counter chakra, they erase it. Like it never existed. Can Percy's water manipulation work against that? Ren asked. Unknown. Percy's power isn't chakra-based, so it might not be subject to the same negation. Hana looked at Percy. But if his techniques can erase existence itself, your constructs might simply vanish. Then I don't rely on constructs, Percy said. I make him come to me. That's not a strategy, that's suicide. No, he's right, Ayame said. Katsuro wants to fight Percy at full power. He's testing something. Some theory about divine training versus self-made power. If Percy tries to overwhelm him with techniques, Katsuro will just erase them and prove his point. So what's the alternative? Percy thought about his fight with Ayame. About how the breakthrough came not from more power, but from genuine connection. I fight him like he's human, Percy said. Not a technique to counter. Not a threat to neutralize. Just a person who made different choices. That's surprisingly profound, Ren said. It's also potentially stupid, Hannah added. Won't be the first time. A proctor appeared. Percy Jackson. You're needed in the arena. Percy stood. His teammates looked at him with varying expressions of concern and confidence. Don't die, Ren said. Win, Hannah commanded. Ayame said nothing, just nodded. Everything that needed saying had been said. Percy walked into the tunnel. The roar of the crowd built as he approached the arena entrance. This was it. Everything had been building to this moment. He emerged into sunlight and overwhelming noise. The entire village seemed to have turned out to watch. Percy spotted the Hokage in his box. Surrounded by advisors, Kakashi stood nearby, visible eye focused on the arena with unusual intensity. Katsuro was already waiting at the opposite end. He'd removed his outer jacket, revealing the death god's seal clearly on his wrist. It pulsed with dark energy. Percy walked to his mark. They faced each other across the arena. Hayate stood between them. This is the final match. Winner is promoted to chunin and earns the respect of the 5 great nations. This fight determines who stands above all others in this generation. He looked between them. Are you ready? Yes, Katsuro said. Let's do this. Percy replied. Hayate raised his hand, and Percy's world exploded into chaos as the arena floor beneath them cracked, and something massive began forcing its way through from underneath. Seals blazed to life around the stadium, the same Greek letters Percy had seen before, now glowing with malevolent energy. The dimensional barriers were breaking, and something was coming through. Chapter 2 End.